We got a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about. There is so much that's happened recently. And I do agree, Lizzie, thanks for all your work. And love your speech last time too. No memes, unfortunately. I'm still working on the memes. The Q2 ends obviously next week. So stay tuned for the memes on Twitter. So, but yeah, there's a lot going on, obviously, in this space. And obviously a lot of the attention right now is on the Senate. We've had a lot of great momentum in the House with FIT 21 passing at the end of May, as we also had the SAB 121 unfortunately got vetoed by the president, and it does seem that there's not the at least 2/3 majority in the House right now for us to kind of reverse that veto. So they're going to try some other tactics. It seems the other offices that were involved, like Senator Lummis, as well as Mike Flood and Wiley Nichols. So we're going to see that there's other ways we can help there. So, but for now, we're going to focus a lot of the attention over on the Senate, and it seems like the Senate Agriculture Committee is really heavily involved. And again, just to remind folks, FIT 21, for example, went through the House Ag Committee and House Financial Service Committee. And so the equivalent of that is Senate Banking, Senate Agriculture. And for a long time, a lot of the conversation on crypto has mostly been in the Banking Committee. We had Landon when he was with Senator Toomey back in the day, but we had a lot of those hearings happening mostly on the banking side. And Senate Ag, for the most part, really hasn't dabbled their toes too much into the crypto space, except for 2 years ago. We saw the DCCPA, the Digital Commodity Consumer Protection Act. That was a bill that seemed a little more favorable on the centralized exchanges, but it really did lump in DeFi with a lot of those regs as well, which is why a lot of the industry as a whole, including a lot of centralized exchanges like Coinbase, were against that legislation 2 years ago. So fast forward now, there's reports that Senator Stabenow, who's the lead Democrat for the Senate Ag Committee, is working on a bill. So we don't know the full details yet. I'm sure we'll hear about it pretty soon. But regardless, it seems like she's working on an effort. It could be very similar to the DCPA. Again, we don't know. I'm sure we'll know more as time comes on. But there's a non-zero chance that we could have a market structure bill or votes in the Senate. Again, a lot of things can really mess this up because it's politics. Crypto is now an election issue. I'll get into that shortly. But overall, there seems to be things happening, at least in the Senate, behind the scenes. We're having conversations, but we do expect a pretty busy July. So, amid all the presidential debates that'll be happening next week, we also have the conventions next month as well. But crypto could possibly find itself back in the mainstream conversation. So while it seems a little quiet right now, rest assured, it's going to get busy soon. So, again, we'll have to see what the legislation says before, we get really excited because it can go in a lot of directions. But just flagging for folks, keep an eye on the Senate. And then quickly kind of more pivoting over to the elections here, because crypto is an election issue. That's kind of shocking. I never thought that'd be the case. But here we are with President Trump multiple times has said he wants to be the crypto president. He wants to be having all Bitcoin mining in the United States. Doesn't make sense. We also have the protect self-custody. I mean, these are like protecting self-custody, for example, like that's a really clear, explicit line that even folks in Congress on the Republican side, not all the folks on are for pro self-custody, for example. So this is a really big movement from President Trump. And we're seeing the Biden administration feel the heat a little bit. And I think that's kind of why we've seen the exciting news that happened on Tuesday, which was that ETH, the investigation of the SEC being a security, was closed out. It seemed like that's a lot of the political pressure that got the ETH ETF over the finish line here. And a lot of that comes from both the momentum that the Congress is building on these bills, but also from the other presidential candidate saying a lot of pro things because he sees a lot of money, a lot of grassroots, and a lot of engaged voters here that have said in multiple polls that crypto is an important issue for them. So it is crazy time of year, but we do expect it to really pick back up, which is, again, we're in a pretty rare spot because right now, usually things are really quiet legislatively on the Hill, but crypto's got a lot of attention, a lot of momentum, and it's on the national stage. So is there a chance that crypto comes up in next week's presidential debate? I don't think so, but I have been wrong several times on this front. So we will see what happens here, but there's a lot happening. Are we doing Q&A or is it? Yeah, I'm happy to Q&A for any folks quickly on this front, but yeah, a lot going on. So how can I help?
Please wait for the mic.
Yes. Anybody have any Q&A? Yes, great.
As you touched upon on Tuesday or yesterday, the SEC tried to close that case about ETH not being a security, but that necessarily doesn't mean that they're classifying ETH as a commodity. Is that correct?
That's correct. And Matt Corva, who's on the legal team for Consensus, he did make a long tweet thread, which I highly recommend looking at, but he kind of outlined, hey, look, the fights are still happening here. And this is not settled by any means. So, and again, we also have dozens and hundreds of other tokens to get to. And the question is, are we going to have like a case by case basis and have the status quo, or are we going to have, clear rules of the road via Congress and not have to have, waiting for a speech from the SEC or waiting for a tweet that says, something is a security or not. So having that bright line rule would be a lot more helpful than having to wait for these press releases. So, but we're excited. Again, the momentum's there, but still a lot of legal fights to come. And there's, again, obviously a lot of legal cases still happening here that carry huge significant importance, both for the legislation, but also just for the industry as a whole. So definitely keep an eye on the courts because they do carry a lot of power here.
Now, even though President Biden vetoed the repeal of SAB 121, it seems like there's a lot of political pressure, including the election, or because in large part for the election, that the Biden administration is becoming more pro-crypto, or at least less hostile towards it. What are the chances that the Biden administration does push the SEC to repeal that rule just quietly?
It's hard to see right now. I know again the veto happened after the ETH ETF approval, so we did see some political shifting that happened before the veto threat here. So the veto went away. So it's still there's a non-zero chance, I'll say, but at the same time, I think they might probably close that door shut here. So and again, there's also the market structure bill that we take up a lot of the political attention too. So I don't say 100% it's done deal, but it seems like that's the view right now. But obviously, political pressure has a strange way of making things happen for us. So, and it's weird to be on the other side of that. For a decade, crypto was on the other side of the political power and getting kind of railroaded with various pieces of legislation or various amendments or what have you. So it's nice to be on this side, but it's hard to map out. And again, actually, the one thing we have noticed too is that given crypto's prominence both in the election but also in Congress, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's a lot harder to steer. This is whatever Chuck Schumer decides, this is the time to have a crypto vote. Like we are held to that almost. So that's a weird situation to be in because usually we can, telegraph things, but there's a lot of attention here. So we will see how that plays out. And the politics plays a major role now. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys very much and enjoy the rest of the program here.